Hello world, it's Austin. Let's talk about being transgender and Christian. So a couple of months ago, I made a video called 8 Ways to Start Conversations in Your Church that was all about how to talk with people in your church communities about becoming LGBTQ allies. A lot of you gave some really great feedback on that video, and one of the biggest questions afterward was, what do I do if I'm in a church that's just like blatantly unsupportive? Or for that matter, what do you do if you are trans and you are in a school or a home that is blatantly unsupportive? This is really tough stuff. Living in an environment where people are not supportive of you and your gender identity can be really difficult, and living in a hostile environment is just like... The stress from that kind of situation can leak into your life in unexpected ways and can come out in, forms of depression and anxiety and lots of other things. So we need to talk about how to healthily deal with being in these situations. Well, if you're trans and if you're in an unsupportive environment, whether that's your home or your school or your church, I think there are 3 things that's really important to remember. Number 1 is the importance of finding your allies. Number 2 is the importance of finding your exits. And number 3 is the importance of finding your daily bread. So before we go into detail on any one of these, let's put ourselves in the situation first. Imagine you're a trans teenager living in a home where your family or your parents maybe have expressed really negative views about trans folks or LGBTQ folks in general, and so you don't feel safe coming out. Or maybe try this situation. You're a trans person in your 20s and you're in a church community that you really love, but you know that they have some theological views that are really damaging and harmful to LGBTQ folks or to trans folks, and so you feel like you can't come out without losing that family that you've built around you. What do? Well, first you find your allies. You reach out to any people around you that you feel are trustworthy and who can support you. So that might be a teacher or an extended family member or a counselor or a pastor or a church LGBTQ ally group or any other official kind of support group. Reach out to organizations that help facilitate this kind of thing. You can look at PFLAG, for instance, and you can look at the ACLU's page on protections for trans kids in schools, both of which I'm going to link down below. If you're in a church congregation, find the people that might be willing to have some more positive conversations about LGBTQ identities. There may be some in your congregation that you don't even know about. In short, you gather together as many supportive people, organizations, and pieces of information as you can. It may feel like you're alone in your situation, but you're really not. There are so many people in the world who want to lend a helping hand or an ear to listen or even a couch to stay on if you need it. So this brings us to our second step, find your exits. Just like in a plane or at the movie theater, you need to know what the fastest way to safety is if something goes wrong when you come out to your family or to your church. I just have to take a break for a moment here to say this is not how things should be. Kids should not have to find their exits and worry about their parents attacking them in any way. And people should not have to worry about their church community turning on them and ignoring them or trying to kick them out because of their gender identity. This is not the way things are supposed to happen. But because this is our situation right now, we need to be prepared if we get into a situation where things turn bad. We need to be able to find the fastest way to safety. I'm putting 2 more links below, one from the It Gets Better project. They have a great resource page where you can go and click your state, and it'll show you all of these different resources for housing and support in your state that are close to you. The second link is from the Ali Forney Center, which is actually in New York, but they also have a state-by-state listing where you can click on your state, and if you need a place to stay or a place to sleep, if your parents tell you that you have to leave, that's a great place to go and look. And even if you are not in a situation where you think you might need this information right now, I would really encourage you, if you're in any sort of situation where you feel like you may be unsupported in some way, I would just encourage you to click on those resources down below and find the closest center to you. Because even if you may not need it now, a friend might need that information, or heaven forbid, you might need it sometime in the future, and it's good to just sort of have in your back pocket. When it comes to worshiping in a non-affirming church, you may be stuck in another sort of should I stay or should I go kind of situation. The choice is yours, obviously, but I would really encourage you to reach out to any group in your denomination that may work with LGBTQ advocacy. Most denominations have one, so if you can find yours, that's awesome, and they will be able to direct you toward a church, hopefully in your denomination, that can be fully supportive. So maybe you might have to leave the church that you're in, but you don't necessarily have to leave your denomination. So there there are ways to kind of work around this, and there are people at those denominational groups who can help you go through that process in a safe and healthy way. I'm going to put another link down below that is to the How Do I Find a Welcoming Community page at Queer Grace, which talks a lot about these denominational groups, so you can definitely check there for more info. Leaving your church can be really hard, but just know that even if you're leaving one church, that doesn't mean you're leaving the church. There are plenty of churches out there with doors wide open for you. Finally, number 3, you've got to find your daily bread. And what I mean by that is you've got to find ways to open up to that connection with God and to open up to those things that sustain you. Because like I said before, it's really difficult to live in a place, whether that's a community or your home, where people are telling you that you or people like you are bad. That puts a lot of strain on. So you have to find ways to be sustained and be held up. For lots of people, this sort of spiritual food might mean reading the Bible, or it might mean going on long walks, it might mean singing, it might mean going to a Bible study group, it might mean reading Chronicles of Narnia over and over again. Whatever it is that helps you open up and feel the connection that you have with God that is always there, even if you can't always feel it, make time and space to do that thing. Make time for any activity or lack of activity, like meditation, that helps you open up and lets you hear God's words of love for you. And on that note, I want to leave you with a recommendation to read Psalm 27. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this psalm before in TNC videos, but it's just because it's such a good form of encouragement, especially for people like me that take a lot of encouragement from Scripture. It begins, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" And it's this whole story of being caught in really desperate and difficult circumstances and crying out to God and saying, "God, this is really hard and I don't know what to do," and then finally coming to rest in God's trust and care. Verse 10 reminds us that even if my father and mother should forsake me, God will take me up. And verse 5 reminds us that in times of trouble, God is our refuge and our shelter. I hope that if you are one of those people in these difficult circumstances, you will take those words to heart and remember them, because they are just as much true for you as they are true for the psalmist who wrote them. So there are my suggestions for living in unsupportive communities. Find your allies, find your exits, and find your daily bread, your source of strength. So I hope that was helpful. I'm also going to make a video at some point in the future on tips for living in unsupportive communities if you are an LGBTQ ally, because I know there are a lot of allies out there who aren't sure what to do about being in their unsupportive community. So that will come sometime in the future. If you have interest in that, let me know down in the comments below or on Twitter. And that's the best way to get at me, to tell me anything. So go ahead and do that. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you back here next week. So subscribe, and I'll see you back here next Wednesday, everybody. Peace.